Welcome to This Commerce Life. We are an unscripted podcast dedicated to small businesses and entrepreneurs in the retail and consumer packaged goods space in Canada and the United States.
I am Phil Chang, co-host and co-founder.
And I'm Daniel Vanucci, co-host and co-founder of This Commerce Life.
Our love is the journey to retail, and our passion is sharing that with you every week.
Oh, Michael's here already. Or we're just waiting for him to connect audio.
Yep.
Oh,
Just need some audio.
that's nice. No, that's good.
Oops.
Not
Hello.
bad. We're all on time.
Well, hello.
Holy shit, man. That's pretty cool. That never happens.
It is. It's a good thing.
It's a good
Hi,
thing.
Phil. Hi, Kenny.
Michael,
Yeah.
how are you?
I am doing so much better this week than I was last week at this time.
Okay, and why?
Last week at this time, I was on the side of Northwest Marine Drive,
Yeah.
waiting close to 3 hours for an ambulance to take me to VGH from a bike accident.
Oh,
and
my.
I was, it turned out I broke 3 ribs,
Oh my God.
fractured
shit.
4 more, and punctured my left lung and collapsed it. And I was kind of writhing around in pain on the side of the road.
What the hell happened?
Did you get hit by a car?
No, I was looking at the view, not paying enough attention, kind of coasting down the hill,
Yeah.
Yeah.
hit a pothole, and did not quite do a Cirque du Soleil landing.
Oh no.
Attaboy. So when you say view, because the wife's probably in the house, were you looking at a view or were you looking at the Vancouver view?
The Vancouver view.
Okay, just checking, Michael.
Yeah.
You never know. Could be a massive distraction. That's
I
okay.
think personally, I think my wife is a distraction, but even after 37, close to 37 years, but you know.
I tell my wife the same. After all this time, still think she's actually prettier today than she was when I married her.
Yeah, I feel the same way. So.
Yeah. And I actually mean
Me
that.
too.
Yeah.
But yeah, it hurts right now. I mean, I'm not gonna,
Yeah.
it hurts. And if you
I
see me
guess.
fidgeting, it's because I'm kind of moving around, but
Are
We
you?
don't have
Are
to
you?
record this tonight. You know that.
Yeah.
Right? It's not
like,
a big
are you
deal.
okay?
Like, I'm
'Cause
serious.
Punctured lungs is not
Not pleasant.
No,
And I don't
but
want
it's-
you.
wind you.
well,
and,
no, I'm good. We're
Okay.
I'm not going out for a bike ride tonight. So
I didn't think that. That's good. I'm sure you're probably not allowed to go for a bike ride tonight.
I'm not
Yeah.
playing golf tonight. I probably won't play golf now until the fall. So
Yeah, probably. No more tennis. No more a lot
especially
of
with
things.
with my range of motion is like this on this side. I can do
Jeez.
full range of motion on this side, but
Yeah.
this is pretty limited, and I have not yet slept in my own bed. I've just kind of slept in a chair downstairs because
Yeah.
it's too
Ribs,
much.
right?
Wow, like
Just
you really
can't-
banged up. I mean, lucky you didn't crack your head open, I guess. I mean, it was
The
always
helmet was
you always look
fantastic.
yeah. I mean, you always look at that after, right? I mean, oh, lucky for you, didn't get hurt more. I mean, it still sucks, but
Yeah,
it could have
no,
been a lot worse, I guess.
Wearing a helmet is really important. I hit the ground hard, and my head hit hard, but the helmet
Jeez.
did get cracked up a bit. But
Well, it did its
um,
job.
it did its job. And when I see people, they've got their helmet in their basket, it's like, come on, guys.
No, come on.
Especially in our
no.
city, we have so much traffic. And honestly, people in our city really don't follow traffic rules very well.
Yeah,
And
And you
for
see-
bikers, it's even worse because there's no tolerance for bikers. I mean, I know it's a
the
bike
guy who
city,
got
and
hit
there's-
in Victoria yesterday,
Mhm.
and you never know when an accident's going to happen. That's why they're
Yeah.
called accidents.
Well,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes to your point, though, a little carelessness, if you're not paying attention, you're not visibly aware of what's around you. I mean, sometimes they can be prevented, but you're right. So a lot of times it's just crap luck. I mean, wrong spot, wrong time. And
Yeah, but it was
Hey, I'm
pretty
glad you're here.
agonizing, and waiting 3 hours for an ambulance was
that's insane.
not a moment of joy.
No. We really got a problem in this province on that side of healthcare for sure. Our ambulance service is really
I don't think it's just you. I think
I don't know
I
what it's
think
like
the
elsewhere. Like, and I
country-
know our city has got.
Yeah.
There's. I mean, I read that on the news. There's another
Yeah.
person 3 hours. Another person 3 hours.
Yeah, 3-4 hours is not unusual. and
No.
it's worse on following Welfare Wednesday.
Yeah.
And like the firemen that came were kind of apologetic. I was there so long, I had 2 different sets of firemen attending.
Well, what
to
do you
me.
do, right? I mean,
Wow.
They said, well, yeah, hire, they place, that person who just OD'd the second
Yeah.
time today. is ahead of you in the line. And the firemen are not allowed to, they have a nitrous oxide, which is laughing gas. They're not allowed to give that to you because of a dispute with between unions.
Yeah.
At some point, the politicians have got to say, pardon my language, but fuck it. Until for the next 6 months, until we get some resolution to our ambulance troubles, we've got to use every resource, whether it's a policeman who's trained in first aid, whether it's a fireman trained in first aid.
Who's the first people there all the time? Firemen.
Yeah.
They're trained.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, let them do that. Let them help out. I mean, what the hell? Like, what are we doing? It's, I mean, people, it's hard, right? This, you get people OD and it's the second one of the day. I get it, but that's life and death. Like I
agree. I mean, we have to look after people no matter who they are.
Yeah, exactly. And you do have to prioritize. And the guy with the broken ribs is probably going to make it, and the other one may not. You know what I mean? It's just shitty that we have to wait. God, the amount of money we have in our country and the amount of money we spend on things. You think that 3 hours just seems so bloody long. And you must have been in sheer pain.
When you're on the side of the road like that, it was a long time.
I bet like 10 minutes would be too long. 3 hours. Holy shit.
But when they do arrive, we got great people.
They're phenomenal. It's not them, and that's the thing. So we're not blaming anybody. We're not blaming
and driver, fantastic. The resident in emergency, fantastic.
Yeah.
Just fantastic.
Yeah, it's hard, right? Because it's not their fault, and we're not blaming them.
Yeah.
It's just the frustration of. I don't understand.
They're probably equally as frustrated because they can see it, right? I mean, it doesn't feel good. Your job is to help people, and the earliest that you can arrive for someone is 3 hours, right? Like it's, you know what I mean? Like it's not a great situation, but we have to be able to help these guys somehow as well, right? Like
yeah. Okay, well, let's get this podcast off into a little happier spot.
Tell me when we're hitting the start button.
Oh, buddy, we've already started.
We've already started.
We always start. We just start right away. We just talk as we go.
Yeah.
But we'll do some quick introduction and then get you, getting you to tell us or our listeners all about you. So tonight, I'll do it, Phil. So tonight we have Michael Bentley on, who's the president of SierraSil Health, and I'm going to say it's probably Canada's #1 natural health medicine for people who suffer chronic joint pain. Fair, Michael?
Yeah, except we're a natural health product. We're not in the category of so-called medicine, even though
you know what? It's natural health medicine. And I know what you can't say. See, I'm not in that side. I think you guys have a freaking pretty cool product, and I'm giving you medicine designation tonight. Eastbound Italian style. I can share with
you that in our April blog, for example, we had a brain surgeon on, Dr. Chris Honey, who has been a customer, and he used SierraSil to defer hip surgery by many years. And for him, he felt it was more powerful than the other products he was using that fall into a different category than natural for him in terms of the benefits. And the only reason he ended up going ahead with the surgery was because the surgeon he wanted to do it was retiring. So, but it's amazing. We've got a number of the faculty at UBC Medicine, which is Canada's largest medical school, apparently, who either use or recommend our natural health products.
Why I will call you a medicine. When we first started inviting you, even in the old days when I was in London and brought you down to the pharmacy conference, et cetera, I mean, we looked at it on our side, or John and I did for sure, as more of a medicine. I mean, it's a natural medicine. I mean, whatever. I don't know. Who cares where it comes from? It's still what it is. So what we'll do, the format is very simple. If you haven't listened to one of our podcasts, we are really typically not just unscripted, unprepared. It's your show for the next hour. Really what we'd love to hear is where you came from, why you're doing what you're doing. I'd love to hear more. I mean, I do know a lot about it, but I think the product's phenomenal. I think the story's cool. So basically the next 45 minutes or so or as long as you're not in pain, is yours.
Yeah.
Light her up, baby.
Well, let me first say that with the introduction, it was, I appreciate that. I've had the luxury, or as it were, of being named I've been recognized as a leadership award winner for the Canadian Health Food Association. But ultimately, my main job, I'm a husband and I'm a dad. And my joy with my work is making a difference in people's lives, with our customers, with our employees, and to try and do business in some senses differently. But I look at it as the old-fashioned way, where you actually care about the people you're doing business with. And we have a passion. We want to make a difference in people's lives. And at the end of the day, that's what gives me the most joy. It's why one of my volunteer roles, I'm a new director for the Canadian Health and Fitness Institute. And there's some issues I'd love to talk about on that if you'll let me, that tie in with what's happening in health. But we just like to make a difference in people's lives. And it's such an honor. We start our team meetings with customer stories because that's what it's about.
Wow, amazing. Amazing.
My wife worked for CBC. My wife used to work. She's retired from CBC Radio, and I've been taught by her, and I like to think that I do listen to my wife, is that you don't give long answers. You give little paragraphs. You don't go, yeah, no. You give a little paragraph and let you guys jump in. So however you'd like to work.
It's cool. What I'd love to kind of like finish the back half here. Do you want to tell us about how you got to SierraSil and kind of that bit of your journey? Because I think the context will be good, right? Because it feels like when we get to SierraSil, it's going to be very meaty. So like a lead up to that would, give us a sense of your journey, how you got here.
Well, I was born and raised in Vancouver.
Okay.
I worked in the forest industry for a company actually that my grandfather and great uncle started in 1938. I grew to become one of the largest forest products companies in Canada, if not the world. And they were pretty passionate about looking after people, as well as the environment, which may come as a surprise to some people, but people like my grandfather were actually outdoorsmen and he loved hiking in nature and really was passionate. So that company was planting trees before it was the law back in the 1950s. It was doing all sorts of different environmental firsts, made the first chlorine-free pulp in North America, basically set new benchmarks, and also was the safest company in the industry by far. Like their mills would typically be 1, 2, 3 in terms of the rankings. And I can remember as a kid one time chatting with my dad in the evening, and he was pouring over safety data, and he was concerned because, well, the sawmills had an injury rate less than 1/5 of the industry standard. So it meant that someone working in one of his mills was 5 times more likely to go home without an accident than in a typical mill. Right. At the pulp mills, it was only twice as good. And that wasn't enough. They wanted to set their sights higher, and they ended up benchmarking beyond the forest industry on that. So from a young age, I learned about respect for people. And that certainly was reinforced with my personal faith that I have, that kind of weaved back into my life after our second child was born. But I was working in the forest industry, but then made a very difficult decision to leave the forest industry. And my work in it was not fulfilling a number of criteria that I set for myself that I wanted around work. And so I ended up leaving, and it was kind of a grieving process because I always thought I'd spend my whole career in that organization. Mm-hmm. But I then started consulting, and my clients included competitors, but more in a niche areas, as well as small companies and startups. When through that process, I learned my dad had invested in this potential nutraceutical business, and I thought that was all just BS. Like, you don't need a supplement, just have a healthy diet. But it was not progressing as he thought it might. So he actually engaged me as a consultant to take a look at it. And I came to the conclusion that the people involved may have been well-meaning, but it wasn't going to grow into a business as I saw a business at any rate, with the accountability factor to staff, to shareholders, to your customers. And one of the other directors made a proposal that my dad agreed to, and he ended up buying the mineral rights to this deposit. But in that process, my wife signed me up for a sun run. And my challenge was I gave up running in my mid-30s because it hurt my knees too much. So I thought, okay, well, it's been a few years. Maybe time has healed my knees. Time heals everything, right?
Sure.
So that night I got on a treadmill because I didn't want to run through the neighborhood, and if I found my knee wasn't working great, be walking back home looking like a bit of a poser in your jogging gear. I mean, guys have egos, right? And so I got on a treadmill, and if your knees get sore when you're on the treadmill, you just get off and then push some weights around. I mean, it just looks like you were just warming up. So I got on the treadmill, and sure enough, my knee said, "You're not doing this. You're not doing the sun run." So I started using the minerals. This is before we commercialized it. And 2 days later, went back on the treadmill, ran for half an hour, and there was no knee pain. Huh. I didn't have time to go further, but I thought this is pretty cool. 2 days later, back on the treadmill, 50 minutes. I was bored. I was tired, but I made it 50 minutes. No knee pain. Huh. And then another 6 days later, I did the sun run, 10K, no knee pain. My thighs were a bit sore, like,
right.
It wasn't a walk in the park for me because running on concrete wasn't used to that.
Yeah.
But there was no knee pain. And that was pretty amazing. And so running became part of my life again. And I had no more excuses to not be in shape for my gorgeous wife. So that's kind of the backstory to how I got involved and became passionate about these minerals. So we mine these minerals in the Sierra Mountains and bring them into a facility where we do some sorting and drying and sizing. And then we get it milled to a fine powder. And then we bring it up to the Vancouver area where it gets encapsulated and bottled for people's use. But we didn't want to be snake oil salespeople. So we went and raised some money and to reduce risk and so forth. And we started doing clinical research. So we've got a really strong foundation of clinical research. And what's interesting, time back to earlier in the conversation about meds, is that at a recent Health Canada regulatory forum, a Research Society of Canada used SierraSil as the example of excellence in research and said it actually represents a pharmaceutical pathway, the level and quality of research that's been done on our minerals.
Good for you.
And I'm really proud of that because we're a really small company, and yet we've pioneered research that not even the biggest players in our industry have done.
Good for you.
Including around bioaccessibility, bioavailability, how our minerals play with other ingredients, and so forth. The toxicity testing we did was another level beyond what I've seen from any other company in our industry. And again, we're just a little company. So it's that kind of commitment to do what's right. And my attitude, and lots of the people you interview would have the same attitude. If we can do good for enough people, we will eventually do well. Mm-hmm. And that's what it's about. So.
Very cool.
You're absolutely right. It's funny because just the other night we had someone on, and he, it's funny because we were talking to him and he came off as kind of a little guy, but then when he started talking about his treatments and how many kits or things
or people he's impacting.
Yeah, and it was
incredible.
Lot. Like the math. He was like, oh, well, like last year, he has like $150 kits and he cleared like 6 million. What was that? 6 or 8 million USD? Like,
but it's all trying to help people. His whole motive is very similar to yours. Obviously, nobody's saying it's for non-profit. It's a profit industry. I get it.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you have to be on the evil side. You could actually do things for the
and I just thought like how
that's awesome. Your attitude is very similar to
the
what
way
that
he
was.
delivered it was very similar to
exactly.
you in that yeah, the revenue's there, but that's not what's really important here, right? Like what's really important is I'm helping people.
Right.
Every step of the way I'm helping someone, right? Like, and that was incredibly important to him. And like I just heard it from you too, and I love that, right? Is kind of this, this intense focus on yeah.
We've all heard of Peter Drucker. One of my favorite books on management, Peter Drucker wrote, I think around 1964, and that was The Effective Executive. And he talks about profit being like breath. It's essential, but it shouldn't be why you exist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like, in Collins and Porras, built to last or good to great, those kinds of things. You have to have, I think you really need to have a passion and a focus, because that helps what drives your decision-making. It's what drives what your business is about.
Right.
And we have chosen to keep probably on a reasonably narrow product focus, because we look at our we exist to help people with mild to chronic pain and their pets recover joy and ability. And what do we mean by joy and ability is when people have pain, and I'm not talking about the acute pain that I had when I wiped out on the bike.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Bring on the OTC products.
Absolutely.
I'm not anti-drug. There's a place for drugs. But when we can address things naturally, whether it's through exercise, whether it's, through hands-on therapy, physiotherapy, chiropractic, diet, and so forth, SierraSil is pretty amazing what it does for people. And when you get people like a senior in Edmonton who says she's got purpose in life because she can use her fingers again, and because she can use her fingers again, she can knit, and she does toques for the homeless. And there's athletes who use our product. They usually get results in about 3 days, and we've got double-blind, placebo-controlled crossover research that supports SierraSil is fantastic for athletes, increased peak power, reduced delayed onset muscle soreness, all that kind of stuff. And it's been fun hanging out with some of these athletes in their off season, going out for a golf game or something like that. But at the end of the day, that testimony from the senior, that's what makes a difference in your heart. Sure. That's what, when you get a lady with lupus, for example, and I'm not going to tell anybody who's got lupus who's listening that take our product, your lupus will be gone. That's not what I'm saying. But in this person's case, she was getting sick from her medications, and it was really getting in the way of her ability to work in her job. And taking SierraSil, she was able to feel better, no side effects, and life was better. And pain affects our relationships. Mm-hmm. It affects our ability to go out and enjoy nature. And it has if there are three important relationships in our life: with a God, with each other, and with this planet. Pain negatively affects two of those three.
Right.
If we have pain, it might improve our relationship with a God because we're begging.
Some higher being you're begging to, yes.
But in every or we're grateful for when we don't have pain. But I really believe that, and I've seen a lot of this. Pain is a big deal, and it does affect quality of life.
Absolutely.
And my kind of mission in this is really to help people be healthier, more active naturally. And that includes helping them not use our product if that's what's best for them. Right. So if they've been idle and they have, I really believe exercise is a really important medicine. Mm-hmm. Back to Hippocrates, who talked about it in 400 BC. Man must not just take medicine. Man must take exercise, or something along those lines. Mm-hmm. Mark Tarnopolsky, a physician at McMaster University, was featured on Time magazine's cover a couple of years ago about exercise being the best medicine. And it's why, with regards to the Canadian Health and Fitness Institute, I'm passionate about this, because if pharma care comes up on the federal agenda, as I think many of us are expecting it will, great. But why not give physicians a toolbox other than just drugs. So let's say, Phil, you're my doctor and I come to you presenting with high cholesterol. Mm-hmm. You should have an option other than Lipitor for me. You might want to say, you know what, Michael, what are you eating? And I say, well, had this fried sandwich for lunch. He says, okay, I'm going to prescribe for you a dietitian to teach you how to eat, because we may be able to address this with diet.
Yeah.
Great. Let's give MDs the choices to help people get healthier, not just more medicated.
Agreed. That means we probably have to change the way we teach doctors too, though, right?
Yeah, but I think there's a lot of doctors open to that. I think
there are too. I don't think that's the issue, Michael. I think even when I used to buy vitamins and I bought the category with you, I mean, the joke was always that they probably had 2 days worth of even OTC and natural health learning in, an 8 to 10 year program. So really and truly, when the standard answer is, hey, should I take this? Well, I won't kill you. That's really not an endorsing, ring of holy geez, I should take this. Well, it's not going to kill you. Well, okay, that's great. I mean, I'm sure I'll line up for that product, right? It doesn't work. So I think I think the education process needs to be a little different. I want to ask you one thing though, because maybe I didn't hear it or didn't understand it. So you're going to go do the sun run. Haven't done much stuff in a while. Knees hurt, etc. So did you knew that these minerals were going to do something because of were people's in those areas using them for 1,000 years, or was it like did you guys have it like I want to understand how you got to like deciding I got to ingest this stuff.
Yeah, how this?
I'm assuming you had it in a spoon or a water because you didn't have encapsulated. So like why? Like how do you get from sore knees to taking whatever this is?
That's a great question. We had heard stories of people who were using it, and there were some alternative health practitioners in the US who had tried it with patients and so forth. And there were stories of canceled orthopedic surgeries, knee surgeries, and so forth. And people were saying it was great for their joints. There's a fellow from the lower mainland, the Vancouver area, who felt it helped him with his Crohn's and colitis from an anti-inflammatory point of view. He described it as life-saving for himself. And so we were thinking we would target the joint health category. 1 in 5 North Americans has arthritis, or at least 1 in 5 Canadians. As we get older, that grows to about 50% for people at 65. There are not a lot of happy treatments for that are basically effective and side effect free, or side effect risk free. And so we were thinking about the joint health category from that perspective. And I can share with you that I truly believe that, not again for acute, but for more chronic type of soreness, that there's nothing better. We're basically side effect free. The side effects include chelating heavy metals from your body. That's a good thing. May have other health benefits and so forth. But not everybody, but almost everybody who tries it for sore joints, whether it's from age, that happens to some of us, whether it's from activity like running or being weekend warriors, or vocationally people who are working with their bodies, either because their bodies are idle, because they're in a seated position, such as truckers, law enforcement often, and so forth, or tradespeople who are having to work in awkward places, and then people with health conditions that are inflammatory. We got clinical studies that have earned us 2 patents as a nutritional supplement for osteoarthritis. I have an amazing recent story from a customer that I'd love to share on that. And so it's, where did we start with on this question? It was like,
just how did you sort of
joint
like,
health?
It's still the understanding of how. That's great. So you hear a couple stories, right? That someone feels great after 4 or 5 days. I mean, you hear that about a lot of things. It doesn't mean that you necessarily go out and do anything about it or whatever, right? And I surely wouldn't sit at home before I go on a treadmill thinking, Well, because I don't know how you took it, whether you mixed it in water or
at that time, it was just
I don't know what the hell
powder mixing it in water.
Right. But you know what I'm thinking? I think, okay, well, I mean, I can do that with about 1,000 things in the house because somebody somewhere down the path said, oh, this really works great. Like, for lack of a better, the old wives' tales or what the grandmother would tell you, all those type of things, concoctions in the kitchen, and
between Italians and Chinese, right? Like
seriously, I mean, come on, my God, how many things?
Like the number of things that you're supposed to rub.
The interesting thing, though, is there's about a 30% placebo effect in our category, in the sort of the pain category.
Yeah,
and that's not a bad thing. It's just a thing, but it also makes getting clinically statistically significant results more challenging.
Exactly.
And so when you see studies in the sector that says, half the people felt they had some relief of pain in 2 weeks, we say, great, but how did that compare to placebo? Is a important question. But then there's lots of doctors that I don't care whether it's placebo or not, as long as the patient feels they're feeling better.
If the patient's feeling great, it and really and truly probably shouldn't matter to some degree. It should matter in that if I'm going to go and spend $60, because at the time that's what it was when I bought it from you. If you're going to spend $60, then I'm sorry, but I do expect it to do something. I mean, I don't think that's an unreasonable and an unfair assumption to make. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And what's even more important, I think, is the integrity of the people selling it. So when it's on the shelf, we'll say at a pharmacy,
right,
the pharmacist should be able to say, I've looked at the research and I've got confidence that this has a good chance of working for you. Now there's a lot of products on the shelves that don't have a lot of research, and I'm not saying they aren't any good.
Research.
Yeah, that's true too. I mean, we have some competitors who do research, and we have some competitors who don't.
No,
agree.
We just think research is important, and it's important enough that we've been used as referencing a gold standard amongst companies for investing in research. It's also because we're thin-skinned. Like, I've got a competitor out there, a really nice guy, who says our product is this, this, and that. He may be absolutely right, but I know he spent zero on research to verify it.
Right.
So, but nice guy, and his product's going to work for some people who use it, but I'm a little too thin-skinned for that. And I just think, like, we're not making claims in some areas where we have lots of good anecdotal stories now, because we don't have the clinical research there yet. So
let me give you a plug, though, because, like, in fairness, you're going to dumb this down way too much, and you're going to give pharmacy a lot more credit than they deserve. And I came from the pharmacy side, and one of my best friends is John, who is a pharmacist. So it's not like it, but really and truly, sorry to all my pharmacist friends who may listen, but a lot of them don't come out onto the floor and really know much about the natural health categories. In all honesty, let's be serious here. They get meds, and there's nobody better than to understand meds and contraindications than a pharmacist. You don't go to a doctor, they don't know shit about meds. Pharmacists know about meds. Pharmacists will learn about natural health, but only when they sort of have to, or it's pushed. You were really good at a time when nobody was really doing that. There was a vitamin company in town that you know as well as I do, and one of the nationals, who would start attending our conferences to discuss and really educate pharmacy. But they had C's, B's, calciums. There was enough studies, and doctors would buy into, so pharmacy would. I remember the first time we asked you down to the conference, and it wasn't an easy sell. I mean, I remember there's a lot of pharmacists that thought, what the hell are you doing? Like, what is this fucking hocus pocus stuff that you're bringing down to us? Do you know what I mean?
I think that was one of the hardest. So I bought OTC for Target when they were in Canada, and when I brought in natural products, like, every single one was a slog, right? Every single one, like, the pharmacist group was like, is this real? Is it not real? Well, like, you tell me. Like, do you like, I'm reading the material coming in because I want to make the best choices. I want to pick the right products for the set. want to have the right solutions. And then, I'd get pharmacists who would go like, I don't know, I don't read that stuff. Like that stuff doesn't concern me. Like, yes, it does. like, come on, help me out here, man. Like
medicines to people. Like, you're supposed to be giving me a rounded.
You're the trusted source, not me. I'm not going to stand in the aisles. Like, I'm trying to pick the products that you can stand behind, right? Like,
I'm happy to share with you that the head of the Pharmacy Association of our province chooses SierraSil. She's an avid customer. The head of the Physio Association is an avid customer.
Wow.
The head of orthopedics at Canada's largest medical school told me he got results in 4 days, and he's convinced that, he said, I'm convinced it's not placebo. He's also attributed other benefits to SierraSil, which I said, I'm not going to even adjust that.
Leave him alone. Not studied.
Good, good. Glad you're getting those results. Yeah,
good for you.
But we've, it's nice being able to stand up and say, yeah, this is what's behind it. And when we talk to retailers, whether it's an independent pharmacist, whether it's a health food store or whatnot, and say, when you recommend SierraSil, you're making the same recommendation as the head of rheumatology at Canada's largest medical school.
But Michael, you got to look at it this way. That still comes from you and your belief in your company. And the reason I'm stressing this, not to give you rainbows and sunshine. It's not for that. We have a lot of listeners who are small companies, and they really need to understand that if you want to succeed, you really do need to believe. Just because so people are clear when they're listening. I've known you for a lot of years, right? We brought you we were one of the first pharmacies, or if not the first pharmacy outside of natural health. We were probably the first non-natural health customer of yours, right?
Yes.
A little bit of a spin for you, because you had to protect the natural channel, because we were not considered, friends of the natural channel. We're a pharmacy. But when we brought you in, you took it seriously. Like, the reason you got listed, because you didn't bullshit us. You didn't bullshit me. Like, I actually believed what you were saying, whether I read the science or not. I believed in you. And the thing is, I think what people need to understand, especially the small entrepreneurs that are developing products, and I don't care what category it's in, that's a big deal when you are talking to buyers. And especially if you have a product that at that point maybe didn't have the tons of studies that a pharmacist was looking for. There's a stack on Tylenol, there's a stack of studies on Lipitor, good, bad, and indifferent. There wasn't a lot for you at that time. Like, it still needs to be, the advocate really needs to be you at that point, but you really have to believe in what you're doing and spend the time and the money to talk it.
I was on a panel before my injury last week in Edmonton around small business, and I was asked to comment on what makes a business successful, or a small business successful. Right. And the first thing I said is, you really need to understand why you're in business, and to be passionate and have unshakable values. Those are key. You should be prepared to die with your values,
right,
rather than compromise them for your business. And that recognize you're part of an ecosystem that includes vendors. It includes your customers. It can include regulators, competitors, known and unknown, which comes back to Michael Porter's 5 forces that any of us who went to business school know about, and get to know those forces as well as you can. Be a clock builder, not a time teller. It comes from good to great. Collins and Force, developing systems and employees, but then lead from the front. And what I mean by that is, put your staff first. If there's a dangerous situation, you go in first, as it were. Lead from the front in that regard. And build a culture by living what you believe and sharing the stories. We talked about profit earlier. Obviously, monitoring cash flow is critical. Make that part of the routine. You have to do that.
That's business, right? I mean, you still have to function, right?
But then something else, like we talked about, we're all married, is you need to save your best energy for your most important relationships. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, when I come home, I need to be like, don't come home and turn on the hockey game or something like that.
You need to be dad and
present.
husband, and you need to give them as much time as you gave the day.
Yeah.
Is really what you
energy,
need to try to
at
do.
least the energy.
The energy, exactly.
And you need to try and stay fit. I mean, fit and healthy, because mentally, physically, and so forth, because that's important. And one of my passions around the Canadian Health and Fitness Institute is if we can be healthier more generally as Canadians, that will help us with independence as we age, yet alone improving quality of life along the whole journey. It doesn't guarantee that, because accidents happen, but and things happen, shit happens, but it certainly improves the chances.
Right.
So
let me just, because I know you've been on the board of the CHFA, you obviously have a natural health company. You're well-educated, articulate. Where do you see this all going? Like, where do you see, like, specifically, because I'm always fascinated, because I bought the category for years, and I really like the natural health space. And I like the people within it. And I like most of it because I'm always interested on what their take of, like, where's this go? Not just for SierraSil, it doesn't have to be specifically to SierraSil, but it's even in terms of natural health, or what are you seeing as maybe the next sort of trends, for, I guess, maybe a lack of a better word, or.
I think I can share what I would like to see happen.
That's fine. Because I'd be curious about that too, because maybe we can all influence that.
Let me say a couple things from a retail perspective. I think the retailers that don't provide a distinctive value, their days are numbered.
Mm-hmm.
That distinctive value may be,
agree.
You've got a retailer like London Drugs, which is everyday low pricing with, good products, lots of locally made products and so forth. And the convenience, great. There's some really high quality independent health food stores,
right,
where they have staff that they take time to educate and get educated about the products so that they can help customers with choices. But then there are also health food stores that are they're just in it as a living. They're not going to make it. And maybe they shouldn't make it either. And unless they want to take the time. I've been in a health food retailer. This is not the norm, folks, if you're listening, for most health food retailers, but I've been in one that they were only interested in the margin on the product. They weren't interested in whether the product worked, whether the customer would come back for more. They just wanted the margin on that particular sale.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Important.
Yeah, I know, but I'm personally not going to spend a lot of time focusing on that retailer. But if it's a retailer that wants to truly make a difference in their customers' lives, is prepared to recommend and carry products that will work, great.
Are you finding that's a trend though, Michael, or do you find more retailers are going down that path, or are you seeing maybe less being as caring about that?
I think there's a natural selection process, and those ones will do okay.
Right.
And there's ones of those in most communities around North America. And then there are the other ones as well that are just.
I think we're pretty blessed in this province. I don't think people realize that we have a lot of good retail. We've got a lot of good independent natural health. We've got a lot of good pharmacy. We've got a lot of good grocery, and they actually do give a shit about the communities they're in, and they do care about the products they put on the shelves, whether they're putting natural health products or pharmaceuticals or whatever. I don't care, but they do have that ethos built in.
Kenny, if I could put you and I in one generation and Phil in the generation.
Phil comes in ours. No, don't do that. Don't do that.
It looks pretty good. I know people.
Yeah, Phil just comes in ours. Just don't let him off on being that.
Is. I think the generation behind us, they're looking for more local.
Yeah.
They're looking for more natural.
They're looking for better, period.
They're looking for better.
Yeah.
And that gives me a lot of hope for optimism. When people say, well, what about the next generation? I say, we got a fantastic
shit. There's the one who was going to save us. We don't do a good job on what we did.
The next generation, we don't really hold a candle to them, right? Like we as consumers, we bought whatever was given to us. this next generation, they're discriminating, they're picky.
Well, we bought into the bullshit, drank the
They're
Kool-Aid,
looking for educated answers, and they're as a general kind of guideline is they're unwilling to settle if they're not getting the right answers, right? Like they'll go out and find them and then wonder why, we wouldn't give them those answers, right? So I think I have a lot of hope for the next generation.
I got more faith in the ones behind us, Michael, than ours and the ones that were in front of us.
Yeah.
I think we did more damage than we did a lot of good, but I think the ones behind us are the cleanup crew. And I think they're going to look at what we did and say, okay, you guys don't know what the hell you're doing. This is shit you've left us. And to Phil's point, they tolerate less of the drinking of the Kool-Aid than our probably generation did. They question more, and they're not scared to hold you, put your feet in the fire, and say, you tell me why your product works, Michael. Don't give me the BS story and all this anecdotal stuff. I want to see some stuff. Like, show me why.
Absolutely.
And if you say you're not all for profit, okay, well, show me how you're doing that. Well, don't just talk it, like, show me. So I have more faith. I'm with Phil. I have more faith in the kids behind. I mean, like I have more faith in my kids than I have me.
If you look at some of the byproducts of some of what this generation wants, like Tentree is a really good example, right? Like Tentree is a great apparel brand company. They've kind of made a reputation for planting trees, but they took it a step further, right? Like you can actually track where your trees got planted, right? Because consumers are going, okay, so I bought a pair of sweatpants from you and you said you were going to plant. Well, where are they? Like, how do I know that you planted it? So Tentree actually had to come up with like, I've got to now tell you where I put the trees. You got it. Like, let's do that, right? But I do think that that's the sort of thing
there's a cost to that. They didn't. That wasn't free. They had to take that out of the profits and say, okay, we said we were going to do this. We will refunnel profits into this to show and to make sure that you guys realize that yes, when we say we're going to do this, we do it.
But I think where I'm going with that too, that I really love about your stories, and also the time and the money that you're spending on, trials and like having evidence is, we because we talk to a lot of brands on this show about how, you've got to have 3 or 4 times your costs, built into your profit margin in order to sell at retailers, right? But I think that even us, we don't talk about that, but in that factoring, you've got to factor, like if that's not a lesson to you, it should be a lesson is if you're in the natural health space and if you're in natural health and you're getting products that a consumer can trust, like the model you build is critical, right? Is in the costing of the product, you've got to allocate some room to now like put instruments of trust in there so that
research, education,
correct, right? Like it's not enough to say, I built it. I'm going to build enough room for a broker. I'm going to build enough room for a distributor. I'm going to build enough room for retailer margin. You actually need to go a step further and go, listen, I'm going to build space for all of those, but I also need to cut out some space for research, for education, for the things that are instruments of trust, right?
Yeah. And I mean, there's some things, for example, that we do at SierraSil. If someone's listening and they're trying to figure out what is SierraSil, it's a mineral. We mine it in the Sierra Mountains, hence the Sierra portion of our names, SIERRA. It's a silicate mineral structure, SIL, SierraSil. We didn't spend money on focus groups. We put it in research. We probably should have put it in some focus groups to come up with a really cool name like the Commerce Life.
SierraSil. I think SierraSil is a cool name.
That's a cool name.
But it's like we do testing that nobody sees. Nobody else in their industry is doing because it's important to us. So we're the only company that's actually testing the structure of every batch of our minerals. We do bioaccessibility testing on portions of each of, like we don't do a full spectrum bioaccessibility. We look
no different than a pharmaceutical would.
But we do that because we want to make sure it's consistent from batch to batch.
Right.
That it's consistent with what's been in the clinical research. And so we have more tests that theoretically can put us on offside to reject material. but also our QC staff, which is basically a third of our staff, know that they are the bosses on that. If they said something doesn't meet spec, then it doesn't meet spec and it doesn't carry through.
Right.
So those are kind of costs that we'll just say are not obvious costs, but do add to the cost of a product, as it were, in the
100%.
marketplace.
But then you need to build that in. There's nothing wrong with that. That's the purpose of this. Is you're not.
There's
it's not to cut corners, so you don't do that, though, right? That's
yeah.
There's cost and culture. I mean,
I love the culture aspect of that. That's what you're about.
So, like, I was with a pretty big company during kind of the turn, 08 to 2008 to about 2010, 2011, where there were a ton of recalls, right? And great company, but you didn't always feel like you were in control. The people that had the ability to put a stop on production, because they said, look, we're testing batches and they're failing, right? Like, you didn't always get the sense that you could, hit the red button, stop, like there's something wrong, we should stop, right? Because there's this pressure on volume. So I think, part of that also, like, installing that in the culture where, leadership has said to you, you're the boss, right? So if this isn't up to spec,
you stop it.
It doesn't go, and you stop it, we back you. That's it. End of story, right? That is a huge culture piece that, like, there's a cost to that. There's, but there's also an amazing, positive repercussion, right? Where your people feel, empowered by that as well, right? I think that's amazing.
Yeah. Henry Ford once said, we didn't hire you for your brains, we hired you for your hands. I'm the opposite. And I think most modern business leaders are. If they want to be successful, they need to give space for their employees to make decisions.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Good for you, Michael.
Thank you for coming on. This has been fascinating.
I feel like he should go. There's 50 minutes with the injuries he's had. I'm feeling guilty now.
Yeah. I feel like you should go find a comfortable chair to lean on the non-injured side.
If I could make just an ad.
Yes, of course.
Go ahead.
If anyone's listening who's got sore joints or muscles, whether it's from age, call it the march of time, maybe it's from your activities, whether they're work or pastime or what have you, or health conditions have thrown you a curve, inflammatory health conditions, is just give SierraSil a try. We have a satisfaction guarantee. If you're not feeling the tangible results, not maybe, but tangible results within a couple of weeks, we give you your money back. We also have a canine product that the head of the relevant industry association said is one of the best product in the industry. It is by far. It's not even close. If you've got a senior dog that's hobbling around, give our leaps and bounds.
It's a big deal.
Try it.
It's a big deal.
And just encourage listeners to look after themselves. Like, hopefully you were listening to this while you're going out for a walk, but still paying attention to the traffic around you.
Watch the traffic.
Watch the traffic.
Scenery. Stop looking at
watch
the
scenery.
Watch where you're going.
Pay attention. Watch out for those potholes. But just be healthy, be active, enjoy nature. We're so blessed, and give your best energy to your most important relationships. Whoever those are for yourself.
Exactly.
Amazing.
Exactly.
Amazing.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
If people want to get a hold of you, or if they want to reach out to you and talk to you potentially, or just get some insights into you and or the company.
Sure. If you want to do info at SierraSil, my own email is mbentley@SierraSil, M and then Bentley like the fancy car at SierraSil, SIERRASIL.com. You can reach me. I try and respond to everything without corporate speak. We want to make a difference in people's lives. It's a privilege to serve, and that's what we want to do.
Well, it was a privilege having you on. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much.
Seriously, I really do appreciate it. And I know you've been fidgeting because I know you're probably not massively comfortable. So I do thank you for taking an hour almost out of your evening. So young man, you may go. Phil and I will stick around for a bit, but you can definitely go have
Take care.
Evening. Take care of yourself.
Heal fast.
Watch the scenery.
Bye-bye.
Bye, buddy.
Bye.
Take care.
He's awesome.
He's a nice guy. He's old. I've always liked him. But when we first met him, I remember because, we were in a drugstore, right?
Yeah.
And it didn't matter what I believed necessarily as the buyer on the OTC vitamin side. It was always trying to convince that select group of pharmacists
that you weren't selling snake oil.
Well, yeah, that's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
And I remember the first
But it always feels like that. Always.
Well, because you know why? Because they would all go down these paths and you're thinking, buddy, it's not Pfizer. Christ's sakes.
Yeah.
These are not those companies, but they do have some science. Yes, they do have some anecdotal. And yes, some might be placebo, but so is the other side. There's a lot of placebo built into RX.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a lot of negative impacts in RX.
Without getting into kind of almost conspiracy theory sort of stuff, right? But you also are dealing in an industry where there is a clear slant, right? Like
100%. And they have the money to slant it.
There's a slope and a slant to how the industry works and how you clear claims and
if you're allowed to clear, they'll stop
benefits,
you from clearing too.
Things that you can claim, things that you can't claim.
Yeah.
And the slope is definitively, set one way.
100%.
So,
100%.
So I do. Yeah. I appreciate the work that he's been doing.
Too.
And then
I find it again, I don't care if you like the product. I don't care if you think it's hokey. I don't care if you think it's medicine.
Yeah.
I mean, I do know a lot of people have used it. I know a lot of pharmacists have used it and they swear by it. And I do know that he does, and companies like his do spend the money and effort behind it. And I don't gain. If who's ever listening, I don't care if you're in pharmaceuticals or nutraceuticals or making ice cream like Lori and James.
Yeah.
Put your best foot forward. Put your heart into it.
Yeah.
And give us the best you can get. And I think people will appreciate it. And that's how you become sort of successful in these products.
Yeah.
I like that. That was good.
That's true. I liked it too.
I want to go see my baby now.
Yeah, you go. Daniel's home.
Daniel's home. Woo!
Huzzah!
Oh my God.
In case you guys didn't know, Daniel was away, but Daniel was away and now he's home.
Daddy had nobody.
Okay. Off you go. Goodbye.
Okay.
Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful night.
Thanks, everybody.
I shall not talk to you again tonight.
I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Tell Daniel I said hi.
I will do that.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night.